Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Scott's RPG Reviews. It's been a while since I've done one. It's been kind of a busy winter. Got a new RPG in this last week. Started reading it, and it's really interesting. It's Outgunned. This is it right here, right like that. I'll give you a look at it. So let's talk about it a little bit. And there's one thing in particular that I think is really interesting. So let's go through the book itself first. I got it as a Kickstarter. So part of the adventure Kickstarter. I got a bunch of stuff. I'll cover the other stuff later, but I want to talk about the core book first. Core book is about 200 pages long. It's the smaller format book, about 9 inches tall, about 5 by 9, rather than the big ones that you see with other RPGs, which is kind of nice, makes it easy. 200 pages long, well printed. It's got a nice bookmark in it. I don't know whether the standard edition comes with that. My Kickstarter did. Color printing, very nice. Great artwork. The game itself is focused on kind of action movie role play. It wanted to recreate the experience of the action movies of, it says the 1980s to 2000, things like Die Hard, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which is more of an adventure film. Total Recall is sci-fi. Last Action Hero, that's the one I was thinking with Arnold Schwarzenegger as another example. It wanted to create that action movie cinematic experience. Sylvester Stallone films, that kind of stuff. So, it wanted the mechanics to be light and easy to use. So, the book itself, it starts with, let me pull out the table of contents here. It has an outgunned section talking about what this genre is about. It's got about 20 pages explaining the genre and how it functions. Then it goes right into character creation called Making of a Hero. Then it goes into the rules called Time for Action, which is its basic rules. There's a mechanic called Impending Danger. It talks about it. Goes into equipment. Then it talks about bad guys and how they work. They're very simple. Then that's kind of the player section. That's the first 160 pages. What I found interesting about this book is normally, a lot of times when I look at books, the player section tends to be short and the GM section tends to be long. Here, the player section is 160 of 200 pages, and the GM section is actually shorter at 40 pages, and it includes a 2-page introductory shot, which is kind of a mini adventure. So, it has everything you need. One book has everything you need to both be a GM and a player. Really cool stuff. I looked at the player character creation process. Pretty straightforward. You basically pick a role and a trope and your feats, and that builds your character, and you have a few points to spend. Typical kind of stat blocks. The stat categories are interesting. You have brawn, nerve, smooth, focus, and crime, and then subcategories. It reminds me a lot of that abilities, skills that you see I see it in Free League Publishing games. I've seen it in other games as well. Works pretty well, pretty good standard system. Now, what makes this game unique, other than its genre, is a couple of things. The first one is the reroll mechanic. It has a reroll mechanic. You have your basic roll for a skills test, just like all the other games you have skills tests. Then you can do a reroll, and you reroll, and if you don't improve your roll, you actually lose some stuff, and then you have a final, you can do a third reroll on top of that, which they call all in. So you kind of have it ultimately comes out like Yahtzee, and that's what makes, I think, the mechanics really interesting. This system is not based upon either a roll over or a roll under mechanic. I'm very used to some games you want to roll over a number, these games you want to roll under a number. Pretty standard stuff in most games. This game has what I call the Yahtzee mechanic, which is you're trying to roll matching set. So you create a dice pool like you do in a lot of games, like maybe, and there's 6-sided dice, and all you use are 6-sided dice in this game. And so you say, okay, I've got 5 6-sided dice, 6-sided dice, however many, based upon your stats, abilities, and skills. You roll those dice, and you want to create 2 of a kind, 3 of a kind, or 4 of a kind or more, or 5 of a kind, or even 6 of a kind. Depending on the difficulty of the task is the number of dice you have to quote, successfully complete the task. So a standard task requires 2 of a kind. A more difficult task called critical takes 3. More difficult takes 4. More difficult takes 5. So you're trying to get that Yahtzee-esque kind of match. And so you roll your dice, you find the ones that match, you pick up the ones that don't, and you have the option of re-rolling, hoping that you improve. Because if you don't improve, then you lose the one success that you've got. If you get multiple successes, so let's say you have 2 of one number and 2 of another number, you get additional actions on your turn, which is kind of cool. And if you roll 6 of a kind, really unusual, but possible, the player then becomes a GM for the scene. So for a brief period of time, the player, with the GM's consent, obviously, with respect to what happens, but the player can kind of take control of the action briefly. I thought that was kind of interesting. So this Yahtzee-esque mechanic is really interesting. Now, I haven't run the game yet, so I don't know how that will play out. But I do like that. Kind of reminds me, if you're a board game player, King of Tokyo, which you're doing matching sets. Has a lot of flavor with that. So that's Outgunned. It has the stuff which I got for it, so you're curious, is I got the basic core book. I've got an adventure book, which is an Indiana Jones-esque kind of add-on for it. Then they have 2, and I've got one of them down here, called Action Flicks. This is Action Flicks 2, which are basically genre books. But instead of, I was thinking of the Monte Cook Games genre books, what they call the white books within Cipher System, which are really detailed, lots of explanation books, and really good. These genres, like this Action Flicks Volume 2, has, let's see how many genres in it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So one book, 200 pages. That's their target number, 200 pages. 200 pages long, has 11 genres. Now, to give you an idea of this Action Flicks Volume 2, it has Star Knights, which gives you a Star Wars-esque adventure. Old Ones, which is Cthulhu Horror. Wild West. Dark Light, which is Angels and Demons, for one. Mighty Swords, which is kind of a Conan-esque. District 77, which is a cop drama type format. Dino Storm, Jurassic Park. Furious Wasteland, post-apocalyptic. Army of Evil, zombies. Quick Tales, DuckTales. That was an interesting one. There are 2 at the end here, which I think are really interesting. They wrote a genre book to basically mirror the DuckTales cartoons, which I haven't seen very many of, but kind of interesting. And the last one they have is called Instant Coins, which is about virtual environments like Tron and Ready Player One, and how to run in that genre. So, but they're all very short. Like, I think the virtual one is like maybe 10 pages long. So not a lot of depth for a genre, but enough to get you up and running. So I'm excited to kind of run this one, see what it's like. I'm going to run a couple one-shots. So that's it. Outgunned. When I play it, I'll let you know. But so far, looks to be a pretty good game. Have a good day.